The hospital corridors smelled like bleach and desperation. Natalie Park pressed her forehead against the cold window, watching Chicago wake up 30 floors below while her world crumbled behind a door marked cardiac intensive care. Miss Park? Dr. Harrison's voice cut through her exhaustion. She turned, already knowing from his expression that the news would shatter what remained of her hope. The committee reviewed your sister's case, he said, and those 6 words contained an entire verdict. I'm sorry, the insurance company has classified the procedure as experimental. Without coverage, we're looking at $500,000. And Maya needs the surgery within 3 months. Or, he didn't finish, he didn't need to. Natalie had been a nurse long enough to recognize the silence that followed or. It was the same silence that had swallowed her parents 3 years ago, leaving her to raise a 13-year-old sister on a nurse's salary and determination. I'll find the money, she heard herself say, though the words felt like swallowing glass. Dr. Harrison's hand touched her shoulder, gentle and useless. There are payment plans, fundraising options, but Natalie, you need to understand the timeline here is 3 months, she whispered. 90 days to find $500,000 or watch my baby sister die. After he left, Natalie stood in that sterile hallway and did the math she'd been avoiding. 3 jobs already. 60,000 in savings meant for Maya's college. Another 20,000 if she sold everything they owned. 420,000 short. She could work 24 hours a day for the next 3 months and not even scratch the surface of what Maya needed. Through the window, Maya slept with tubes and wires, mapping the failure of her 16-year-old heart. The same heart that had broken when their parents died. The same heart Natalie had sworn to protect when she became guardian, mother, sister, everything all at once. Her phone buzzed. Another reminder about the hospital charity auction tomorrow night, where she'd volunteered to help serve drinks to Chicago's wealthy elite. She almost deleted it, then stopped. These people threw around money like confetti. Maybe someone would listen. Maybe someone would care about a dying girl and her desperate sister. She pressed her palm flat against Maya's window. I'm going to save you, she promised the sleeping form beyond the glass. I don't know how, but I swear on Mom and Dad's grave, I'm going to save you. 28 hours later, Natalie stood in the ballroom of the Drake Hotel, balancing a tray of champagne while Chicago's millionaires bid on vacations to places she'd never see. Her feet ached in borrowed heels, and the donated cocktail dress from the hospital volunteer coordinator felt like wearing someone else's skin. Lot number 47, the auctioneer announced. A dinner date with one of Mercy General's finest nurses. All proceeds to the pediatric wing. Let's start the bidding at $500. Natalie's stomach dropped. She'd forgotten about signing up for the date auction months ago, back when Maya's biggest problem was a geometry test and boys who didn't text back. 500, someone called out. 1,000, another voice added. She scanned the room, trying to see who was bidding on an evening of her exhausted company, when a voice from the back corner cut through the noise. $100,000. The room went silent. Every head turned toward the shadows where a man sat alone at a table meant for 8. Even from across the ballroom, Natalie could see the precise cut of his suit, the way the darkness seemed to bend around him like it recognized authority. I'm sorry, sir. Did you say 100? The auctioneer stammered. 100,000, the man repeated, his accent carrying a trace of Seoul's expensive districts. For dinner with the nurse, tonight, if she's willing. Natalie's hands shook so badly she had to set down the champagne tray. $100,000. A fifth of what Maya needed, dropped like it was nothing. The auctioneer's gavel came down with finality. Sold to the gentleman for $100,000. As the crowd erupted in whispers, the man stood and moved through the ballroom like smoke through light. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers, if magazine covers featured men who looked like they'd seen too much darkness. His hair was black as midnight, swept back from sharp cheekbones, and his eyes held the particular stillness of someone who never needed to raise his voice to be heard. Miss Park, he said, and she startled that he knew her name. I believe I've purchased your evening. Up close, he smelled like expensive cologne, and something darker, like gunpowder hidden under silk. Everything about him screamed danger, from the way his suit jacket hung just perfectly enough to conceal whatever was beneath it, to the way two men in similar suits shadowed him at a respectful distance. The auction said dinner. Natalie managed, her voice steady, despite the earthquake in her chest. Then dinner it is. He offered his arm with old-world courtesy that seemed at odds with the predator's grace in his movements. There's a restaurant on the 95th floor. We can discuss why a nurse working 3 jobs needs money badly enough to look at $100,000 donation like it's both salvation and damnation. She should have been afraid. Every instinct screamed that this man was dangerous, that his money came from sources that would terrify her if she looked too closely. But Maya had 90 days, and fear was a luxury Natalie couldn't afford. She took his arm. The restaurant was empty except for them, which shouldn't have been possible on a Saturday night, unless someone had enough money to buy privacy by the hour. He ordered for both of them in perfect Korean to a waiter who bowed like this man was royalty, then turned those impossible eyes on her. "Your sister," he said without preamble. Maya, 16 years old, congenital heart defect exacerbated by traumatic grief. 3 months to live without a surgery your insurance won't cover. Natalie's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. "How do you know about Maya?" "I make it my business to know things." He leaned back, studying her with the kind of focus that made her feel like he could see through skin to the desperate calculation underneath. "Just as I know you've been working at 3 different hospitals, that you haven't slept more than 4 hours in the past week, and that you've already done the math on how impossible your situation is. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a solution." He pulled out a phone, typed something, then showed her the screen. A bank transfer confirmation. $500,000 to Mercy General Hospital, Maya Park's patient account. Pending authorization. Natalie's vision blurred. She gripped the edge of the table hard enough to hurt. "What do you want?" The words came out broken, because everyone wanted something, and men who threw around $500,000 wanted things that money shouldn't buy. "A wife?" he said simply. "For 2 years. Legal marriage, public appearances, shared residence when required. In exchange, I pay your sister's medical bills immediately, plus another $1 million when our contract ends." "You're insane." "I'm practical." He picked up his wine, swirled it with the casual elegance of someone raised in places where wine cost more than her monthly rent. "My name is Kwon Dae-jung. I run certain enterprises that require me to maintain specific appearances. My father, who controls the larger organization, has demanded I marry before he'll transfer full authority. Every match he's arranged has failed because the families investigate too thoroughly, ask too many questions about my business practices." "Your business practices?" Natalie repeated. "You mean you're a criminal." "I mean I'm a businessman whose methods occasionally skirt traditional legal boundaries." His smile held no warmth. "But I'm also someone who keeps his word absolutely. Marry me for 2 years, and your sister lives. Refuse, and you go back to watching her die by degrees, while you fail to raise money that doesn't exist. This is coercion. This is opportunity." He pressed his finger to the phone screen. "Choose now, Miss Park. The transfer can be completed in seconds. Your sister can have her surgery next week, and all you have to do is pretend to love a monster for 24 months. Natalie looked at the number on the screen. $500,000. Maya's life reduced to a digital transaction. She thought about her sister's laugh, the way she still insisted on movie nights even when the pain medication made her too tired to stay awake. Thought about the promise she'd made at their parents' funeral to always protect her. "If I agree," she said slowly, "Maya gets the surgery immediately? No waiting? No delays? The best surgeon's money can buy. I'll fly them in from Switzerland if necessary. And after 2 years, we divorce, and I get another $1 million? Plus anything else you've accumulated as my wife. Property, gifts, investments. I'm very generous to those who belong to me. Those who belong to me." The words should have sent her running. Instead, Natalie thought about Maya dying in a hospital bed at 16, and found that her pride, her morality, her fear, all of it weighed nothing against her sister's heartbeat. "I need conditions," she said. Dae-jung raised an eyebrow, apparently amused that she was negotiating. "Such as?" No physical contact without my permission. Separate bedrooms. Maya never knows the truth about our arrangement. And if you hurt me, if you break any promises, the deal is void, but Maya keeps the medical care. Agreed. He extended his hand across the table. Do we have an arrangement, future Mrs. Kwan? His hand was warm, calloused in places that suggested violence was a language he spoke fluently. When their fingers touched, something electric passed between them, dangerous and inevitable. Yes, Natalie whispered, and felt her old life end with a single word. He pressed the transfer button. Her phone immediately buzzed with a call from the hospital's financial department, confused and ecstatic about the anonymous donation that had just saved Maya Park's life. Your sister will have her surgery within the week, Dae-jung said, standing with fluid grace. I'll send a car for you tomorrow to discuss details. Welcome to my world, Natalie. Try not to let it devour you. He left her sitting alone in the empty restaurant, staring at her phone as the hospital confirmed what seemed impossible. Maya would live. The price was just Natalie's soul, sold to a man who wore darkness like designer suits and spoke of ownership like it was romance. 3 days later, Maya's surgery was scheduled with Dr. Petrova, the Swiss specialist who'd literally written the textbook on experimental cardiac procedures. Natalie sat beside her sister's bed, holding her hand while trying not to think about the contract hidden in her apartment, or the ring box that had been delivered that morning with a note in elegant handwriting. For appearances, Dae-jung. I can't believe someone donated all that money, Maya said for the 100th time, her eyes bright with tears and hope. It's like a miracle, Nat. Like Mom and Dad are watching over us. Natalie squeezed her sister's fingers and forced a smile. Yeah, baby. A miracle. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number that she somehow knew was him. Car will arrive at 7 tomorrow. Pack for Seoul. What's wrong? Maya asked, because Natalie had never been able to hide anything from her sister except, apparently, selling herself to a devil in a designer suit. Nothing. Just thinking about how everything's about to change. Maya laughed, the sound worth any price Natalie had to pay. Change for the better, though. We're finally catching a break. That night, Natalie stood on the roof of their apartment building, looking out at Chicago's lights and trying to memorize the view. Tomorrow, Maya would have her surgery. Tomorrow, Natalie would board a plane to Seoul and begin her 2-year sentence as Mrs. Kwan Dae-jung. She opened the ring box. The diamond caught the city lights and threw them back like captured stars. It was beautiful and cold, exactly like the man who'd chosen it. When she slipped it onto her finger, it fit perfectly. Because of course it did. Men like Dae-jung didn't make mistakes, they made calculations. Her phone rang. His number. Second thoughts? His voice was whiskey, and shadows through the speaker. No, Maya is all that matters. Good. Then you should know what you're walking into. I'm not a kind man, Natalie. I run an empire built on violence and fear. My enemies will become yours. My darkness will touch everything in your life. Are you prepared for that? She thought about Maya laughing in her hospital bed. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to keep my sister alive. Then I'll see you tomorrow, future wife. The line went dead. Natalie stood on that roof until sunrise, wearing a ring that felt like a beautiful prison, watching her city wake up one last time as a free woman. The surgery was perfect. Dr. Petrova emerged after 8 hours, with a smile that told Natalie everything before she even spoke. Maya would need recovery time, therapy, medication, but she would live. She would grow up, go to college, have the life their parents had wanted for her. I have to go away for work, Natalie told her sister when Maya woke up, groggy but alive, so beautifully alive. Aunt Sarah is going to stay with you during recovery. Where are you going? Seoul. The hospital is sending me for advanced training. The lie tasted like ash. It's an opportunity I can't pass up. Maya's eyes, still foggy from anesthesia, sharpened with concern. This is about the money, isn't it? You're working more to pay back whoever donated. No. Natalie kissed her sister's forehead. The donation was free and clear. This is just something I need to do. I'll video call every day, I promise. Natalie. Maya caught her hand as she turned to leave. Whatever you're not telling me, whatever you're sacrificing, just be careful, okay? Mom and Dad wouldn't want you to destroy yourself saving me. Natalie squeezed her sister's fingers one last time. I love you to the moon and back. And I love you to Saturn's rings and beyond. Their childhood call and response. Natalie made it to the hallway before the tears came. The car that picked her up was black, bulletproof, and driven by a man who looked like he could kill someone with his pinky finger. He said nothing during the drive to O'Hare, just handed her a first-class ticket and a new passport with her married name already printed inside. The flight to Seoul took 13 hours. Natalie spent them reading a dossier on her new life that had been left in her seat. Kwon Dae-jung, 32 years old. CEO of Kwon International, a legitimate front for the Kwon crime family that had run Seoul's underworld for 3 generations. His father, Kwon Jae-sung, 71 years old, traditional, ruthless, dying slowly of cancer but refusing to pass full control until his son proved he could maintain a stable family life. There were photos. Dae-jung at charity galas, looking devastating in tuxedos. Dae-jung at business meetings where everyone else seemed afraid to make eye contact. Dae-jung with beautiful women who never appeared twice. The last page was a single line, destroy after reading, welcome to the family. She burned the pages in the airplane bathroom and watched her old life disappear in smoke and ashes. Seoul at night looked like a circuit board made of light. The city sprawled endless and electric, foreign and terrifying. Another black car waited at Incheon Airport, and this time Dae-jung himself sat in the back seat, typing on his phone with the focus of someone conducting warfare via text message. Your sister's surgery was successful, he said without looking up. I had my personal physician check the reports. Thank you. Don't thank me. This is a transaction, nothing more. He finally looked at her, and his eyes were darker than she remembered, like the last 3 days had carved something out of him. The wedding is in 2 weeks. My father insisted on traditional ceremonies. Can you memorize Korean vows? I speak Korean. My parents were immigrants. Something flickered across his face, too fast to identify. Good, that will make the performance easier. They drove through districts that grew progressively more expensive, until they reached a neighborhood where the houses hid behind walls and privacy cost more than most people's lives. The gate that opened for their car was iron and imposing, with security cameras tracking their every movement. The house, no, the mansion, looked like something from a drama she and Maya used to watch. 3 stories of glass and stone, with a garden that belonged in a museum and a garage full of cars that cost more than hospitals. Your room is on the 2nd floor, Dae-jung said, leading her through an entrance hall that echoed with their footsteps. Mine is on the 3rd. The staff has been instructed to treat you as the lady of the house. Staff? Housekeeper, cook, security. They're paid extremely well to see nothing and say less. He showed her to a suite bigger than her entire Chicago apartment. The closet was already full of clothes in her size, brands she'd only seen in magazines. The bathroom had a tub that could fit 4 people. The windows overlooked Seoul's skyline, glittering and strange. I don't belong here, she said without meaning to. No, Dae-jung agreed. But you'll learn to pretend. We all do. He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. There's a family dinner tomorrow night. My father wants to meet his new daughter-in-law. Wear the blue dress. He associates blue with trustworthiness. Any other stage directions? His smile was sharp as winter. Yes, try to look like you're in love with me. It shouldn't be too hard. Most women find me passably attractive when they don't know what I really am. And what are you really? He considered the question like it had an answer that might break something. A man who would burn down the world to get what he wants. Sleep well, wife. Tomorrow, the real performance begins. The door closed with a sound like fate sealing. Natalie sat on the bed that cost more than a car and tried to process what she'd agreed to. Outside, Seoul pulsed with neon life, 10 million people going about their existence, while she prepared to fake a marriage to a man who spoke of burning down worlds like it was a promise, not a threat. Her phone buzzed. A photo from Aunt Sarah of Maya, sitting up in her hospital bed, smiling despite the tubes and machines. Alive. That was all that mattered. Maya was alive, and Natalie would play whatever role she had to play to keep it that way. The next evening, Natalie stood in front of a mirror wearing a blue dress that fit like it had been sewn onto her body. Her hair was styled by someone who'd appeared at noon, armed with tools and products that transformed her into someone elegant, someone who might believably marry into Seoul's criminal royalty. Daejung knocked once before entering, and her breath caught despite herself. He wore a charcoal suit that emphasized every dangerous line of his body, and his eyes swept over her with an appreciation that felt like being touched. "You clean up well," he said. "So do you." He crossed the room, and suddenly he was close enough that she could feel the heat from his body. His fingers produced a velvet box from nowhere. "For tonight," he said, opening it to reveal a necklace that probably cost more than Maya's surgery. The sapphires caught the light like trapped ocean. "I can't." "You can and you will." He moved behind her, and his fingers brushed her neck as he fastened the clasps. "My father will notice if you're not wearing appropriate jewelry. He notices everything." His breath warmed her ear. "Remember, we're desperately in love. We met when you treated me for an injury I couldn't go to a hospital for. You saved my life, and I fell instantly." "What injury?" "Gunshot wound, left shoulder. There's a scar if anyone asks for proof." "Why couldn't you go to a hospital?" His laugh was dark honey. "Because the people who shot me had friends in places that would have finished the job." "Oh." His hands settled on her shoulders, warm through the thin fabric. "You're terrified. Try to hide it better, or my father will eat you alive." "I'm not terrified," she lied. "No?" He turned her to face him, and this close she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "Your pulse is racing, your pupils are dilated, and you're breathing like you're preparing to run or fight. Maybe that's just what you do to me." The words hung between them, unplanned and dangerous. His grip on her shoulders tightened fractionally. "Careful, Natalie. I'm not a man you want to play games with." "I'm not playing anything. I'm trying to survive this arrangement with my dignity intact." Dignity. He tasted the word like wine. "That's a luxury you can't afford in my world. But don't worry, I'll teach you to live without it." A knock interrupted whatever response she might have made. "Car's ready, Mr. Kwan." A voice called through the door. "Showtime," Daejung said, offering his arm. "Remember, you love me enough to overlook everything I am." "And what do you overlook about me?" His smile was sad and sharp simultaneously. "That you're the kind of good person who shouldn't exist in my proximity. But here we are." The drive to his father's estate took 40 minutes through Seoul's evening traffic. Daejung spent it briefing her on family dynamics, like they were planning a military operation. "My father built this empire from nothing. He's dying, but slowly enough that he can still destroy anyone who disappoints him. My younger brother, Daeho, thinks he should inherit instead of me. He'll smile and charm you while looking for weaknesses. My mother died when I was 12, but father's current wife, Ji-won, is only 10 years older than me and twice as vicious. She wants her own son to inherit, but he's only 14, so she plays all sides." Sounds lovely. It's survival of the cruelest. Welcome to the family. The estate made Daejung's mansion look modest. It sprawled across acres of manicured land, all traditional architecture and modern security. Guards in suits bowed as their car passed, and Natalie counted at least 12 cameras before they even reached the main house. Inside, the dining room could have hosted 50 people but held only 5. Kwon Jae-sung sat at the head of the table like a king holding court. He was smaller than Natalie expected, thin from illness, but his eyes held the kind of power that didn't need physical strength. "So," he said in Korean, his voice still strong despite the cancer eating him from within, "this is the woman who finally tamed my savage son." "Father," Daejung said, also in Korean, pulling out Natalie's chair. "This is Natalie Park. Soon to be Natalie Kwon." The old man studied her like she was a puzzle to solve. "Tell me, what kind of woman agrees to marry a man like my son?" "The kind who sees more than what he shows the world," Natalie replied in perfect Korean, grateful for parents who'd insisted she speak it. "At home." Jae-sung's laugh sounded like gravel. "Pretty words. But can you handle the ugliness that comes with our name?" Before she could answer, the door opened and 2 men entered. The younger one, who had to be Dae-ho, looked like a softer version of Dae-jung, handsome in a way that suggested ease rather than danger. The woman beside him moved like a snake in designer clothing. "Brother," Dae-ho said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And this must be the mysterious fiancé we've heard nothing about." "We've heard she's a nurse," Ji-won added, making the profession sound like something scraped off a shoe. How wonderfully humble. She saved my life, Dae-jung said, his hand finding Natalie's on the table. That makes her worth more than all the arranged matches you've tried to force on me. Saved your life? Jae-sung leaned forward. How exactly? Natalie felt Dae-jung tense beside her, the moment balanced on a knife's edge. This was the test, the lie that would determine everything. He came to my emergency room, she said, meeting the old man's eyes steadily, GSW to the left shoulder. He'd lost too much blood to make it to one of your controlled facilities. I could have called the police, reported the wound like I was supposed to. Instead, I treated him off the books, gave him my own blood when we couldn't wait for a match, and got him out before morning rounds. Why? Ji-won asked. Why risk your career for a stranger? Natalie looked at Dae-jung, letting something genuine creep into her expression, because the best lies were mostly truth. Because I could see he was someone who mattered to people. The men who brought him in were terrified of losing him. That kind of loyalty isn't earned by monsters. And yet monsters are exactly what we are. Jae-sung said softly. Make no mistake, girl. We dress in expensive clothes and donate to charities, but we built this empire on blood and suffering. Can your healer's heart handle that? My heart can handle whatever it needs to protect the people I love. Love. The old man tasted the word. You love my son? This was it. The moment that would sell the lie or destroy it. Natalie turned to look at Dae-jung fully, and found him watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Yes, she said simply. I love him. Dae-jung's hand tightened on hers, and for a moment something passed between them that felt dangerously close to truth. Dinner was 7 courses of interrogation disguised as conversation. Ji-won asked about her family with the precision of someone looking for blackmail. Dae-ho made comments about American women that danced on the edge of insult. Jae-sung watched everything with eyes that missed nothing. Through it all, Dae-young played the part of devoted fiancé perfectly. His thumb traced patterns on her hand. He leaned in when she spoke like her words were gospel. When Ji-won's questions got too sharp, he redirected with the skill of someone used to managing predators. The wedding will be traditional, Jae-sung announced over dessert. Full ceremony, 500 guests. The families need to see that my heir can maintain proper appearances. Of course, father. And I expect grandchildren within the year. The line must continue. Natalie's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Children hadn't been part of the contract. We're in no rush, Dae-jung said smoothly. Natalie's sister is still recovering from surgery. Ah yes, the sick sister. Ji-won's smile was venomous. How convenient that Dae-jung could afford such expensive medical care, almost like a fairy tale. The threat in her words was clear. She suspected the truth. It is like a fairy tale. Natalie agreed, meeting the woman's gaze steadily. The kind where love conquers even death. How poetic. Though in my experience, death usually wins. Then you haven't loved hard enough. The room went silent. Ji-won's face flushed with rage, but before she could respond, Jae-sung laughed. It was a sound like stones breaking, but it was genuine. I like her, he declared. She has spine. You'll need it, girl, to stand beside my son. The enemies will come for you first, thinking you're the weak point. Prove them wrong, and you might survive this family after all. The rest of dinner passed in tense civility. When they finally left, Natalie felt like she'd run a marathon through a minefield. In the car, she let her head fall back against the seat. That was horrible. That was successful, Dae-jung corrected. My father approved. That's all that matters. Your stepmother knows something. Ji-won suspects everything and knows nothing. As long as we maintain appearances, she can't prove anything. And the children thing? His jaw tightened. Won't be an issue. The contract is for 2 years. We'll deflect until then. They drove in silence for a while, Seoul's lights painting patterns across the windows. You did well, he said. Finally. The blood transfusion detail was inspired. I've had 3 days to think about our cover story. Still, you lie beautifully when you need to. Is that supposed to be a compliment? In my world? It's the highest praise possible. When they arrived back at the mansion, Natalie expected him to disappear to his floor, but he followed her to her door. There's something else, he said. Tomorrow night, a business meeting at one of my clubs. You'll need to be there. Why? Because someone is stealing from me, and I need to know who. A new fiancé is the perfect distraction. Everyone will be watching you, which means they won't see me watching them. So I'm bait. You're camouflage. Wear something red. It makes people think of danger and passion simultaneously. He started to leave, then paused. Natalie, my father was right about one thing. They will come for you, thinking you're weak. When they do, remember that you belong to me now. In this world, that's the only protection that matters. I don't belong to anyone. His smile was all shadows. Check your bank account. Check your passport. Check the ring on your finger. You belong to me in every way that the world counts. The sooner you accept that, the safer you'll be. He disappeared up the stairs, leaving Natalie alone with the truth of her situation. She was married to a man who dealt in violence like currency, surrounded by people who would destroy her for sport, pretending to love someone who might be incapable of the emotion entirely. Her phone buzzed. A video from Maya, laughing with the physical therapy team. Alive, healthy, worth any price. The next night, Natalie stood in front of the mirror again, this time in a red dress that made her look like sin personified. The club, Dae-jung had explained, was one of 7 he owned, the legitimate face of less legitimate enterprises. Stay close to me, he instructed as they entered through a private entrance. Smile. Touch me. Occasionally, like you can't help yourself. And whatever you see tonight, don't react. The club was all black marble and gold accents, with music that thrummed through her bones and lights that turned everyone beautiful and anonymous. VIP section overlooked everything, and that's where Dae-jung held court. Men came to pay respects, to discuss business in Korean and Mandarin and Japanese. Natalie sat beside him, playing the devoted fiancé while her eyes tracked the room like he'd taught her in the car. The man in the gray suit, she murmured during a break in visitors, her lips close to his ear like she was whispering endearments. He keeps checking his phone every time you mention specific numbers. Dae-jung's arm tightened around her waist, pulling her closer. To anyone watching, it looked like affection. Good girl, he said against her hair. Keep watching. The night wore on. Natalie identified 2 more suspicious behaviors, all while maintaining the facade of a woman besotted with her dangerous lover. It should have been harder to pretend, but Dae-jung made it easy in ways that troubled her. The way his thumb traced circles on her bare shoulder. How he automatically shifted to block her from view when certain people approached. The careful way he monitored her alcohol intake, switching her drinks for water when she wasn't looking. Why do you care if I get drunk? She asked. Because drunk people make mistakes. And mistakes in my world have permanent consequences. At midnight, he stood abruptly. We're leaving. In the car, he made a single phone call in rapid Korean. Natalie caught enough to understand. The man in gray would be handled. Handled how? She asked. Do you really want to know? She thought about it. No. Smart girl. Back at the mansion, he walked her to her door again. This was becoming a ritual, she realized. These moments in the hallway where the pretense dropped slightly. Thank you, he said. Your observations. Tonight saved me considerable money, and possibly some lives. Lives? The man in gray was selling information to the Choi family. They would have used it to ambush one of my shipments. My men would have defended it. And now? Now Mr. Gray takes an extended vacation somewhere tropical, and the Choi learn nothing. She should have been appalled. Instead, she found herself oddly relieved that the solution didn't involve violence. You're not what I expected, she admitted. What did you expect? More bodies. Less mercy. His laugh was bitter. Give it time. You'll see plenty of both before our contract ends. A week passed in strange domesticity. Natalie video called Maya every morning, watching her sister get stronger. She attended Korean lessons to perfect her formal speech for the wedding. She accompanied Dae-jung to 3 more dinners, 2 charity galas, and 1 tense meeting with his accountants, where she pretended to understand nothing while memorizing everything. She learned his patterns. He drank coffee black at exactly 6 a.m. He practiced combat training from 7 to 8. He showered at 8:15 and was in his office by 9. He worked until midnight most nights, later when problems arose. She also learned his tells. The way his jaw tightened when he was controlling anger. how his fingers tapped specific rhythms when calculating odds. The slight pause before he lied, like he was measuring the weight of deception. "You're studying me," he said one morning, catching her watching him over breakfast. "Know thy enemy. Is that what I am? Your enemy? Aren't you?" He considered this. "No. I'm your husband, your protector, your cage, but not your enemy. Your enemies are out there, waiting for you to be alone long enough to strike." That's comforting. It's honest. 3 days before the wedding, Natalie was fitted for the final time. The hanbok was exquisite, all silken tradition, heavy with expectation. The seamstress spoke in hushed tones about how lucky she was to marry such a powerful man. "Power isn't luck," Natalie said in Korean. The seamstress went pale. "Of course, Mrs. Kwan, forgive me." That night, Dae-jung found her on the roof garden, staring out at Seoul's endless lights. "Second thoughts?" he asked, echoing their first phone call. "Third and fourth thoughts. But Maya walked today. 10 steps without help. Then no regrets. Not yet." He stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "My mother would have liked you." It was the first personal thing he'd ever offered. Why? She believed in sacrifice for family. "She stayed with my father even when his business became what it is, because leaving would have meant leaving her children unprotected." What happened to her? Car accident. Or that's what the report said. The implication hung heavy between them. "You don't believe it?" "I believe my father had enemies who knew the only way to hurt him was through her. I was 12, old enough to understand, too young to do anything about it." Is that why you need to inherit? Revenge? No. I need to inherit because I'm the only one who can transform this empire into something that won't devour itself. Daeho would burn it all for profit. My father's other allies would turn it into a war zone. I can make it cleaner. Cleaner crime is still crime. Yes, but it's crime that doesn't involve trafficking children or selling poison to schoolyards. Sometimes the best we can do is minimize harm, not eliminate it. She turned to look at him fully. In the garden lights, he looked younger, almost vulnerable. "Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night?" "I don't sleep well regardless. Too many ghosts." Without thinking, she reached out and touched the scar on his shoulder, feeling it through his shirt. "This isn't really from a gunshot, is it?" "No. Knife fight when I was 19, but the story sounds better." "Why tell me?" His hand covered hers, pressing it against the old wound. "Because in 3 days you'll be my wife, fake or not. You should know some truth about the man you're binding yourself to." The moment stretched between them, dangerous and electric. Then his phone rang, shattering whatever spell had been building. "What?" he answered in Korean. His face changed as he listened, hardening into something lethal. "Where? How many?" "I'm on my way." He hung up and was already moving. "Stay here, lock your door. Don't answer for anyone but me." "What's happening?" The Choi decided to escalate. "They have 3 of my men, Dae-jung." He paused at the garden door. "Lock your door. I'll be back before morning." He left, and Natalie stood alone in the garden for a long moment before going inside. She locked her door as instructed, then sat by the window watching for his car. He returned at 4 a.m. She heard him on the stairs, the slight drag in his step that meant injury. Without thinking, she opened her door. He stood in the hallway, blood on his shirt, favoring his right side. His knuckles were split and swollen. "I told you to stay locked in," he said. "You're hurt." "I'm fine. You're bleeding." "It's not all mine." She should have been terrified. Instead, she found herself pulling him into her room, pushing him into a chair, retrieving the medical kit she'd noticed in the bathroom. "This needs stitches," she said, examining a gash along his ribs. "So stitch it. I don't have local anesthetic. I've had worse." She worked in silence, cleaning and stitching while he sat perfectly still. His skin was a map of violence, scars telling stories she didn't want to know. When she finished, she realized he was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "Your men?" she asked. "Alive, mostly intact. The Choi?" Received a clear message about the consequences of taking what's mine. She should have asked more, but she found she didn't want to know the specifics. Instead, she cleaned his knuckles, wrapped them carefully. "Why did you open the door?" he asked. "You knew I was dangerous when I left." I'm more dangerous now, with blood on my hands and violence still singing in my veins. Because you're hurt. That's not a good enough reason to risk yourself. She met his eyes. It is for me. Something shifted in his expression. His uninjured hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. You're going to be the death of me, he said softly. I thought you were unkillable. So did I. For a moment, she thought he would kiss her. The air between them crackled with possibility. Then he stood, steadying himself against her shoulder. Thank you, he said formally, for the medical attention. Dae-jung? He paused at the door. Be more careful. I don't want to be a widow before I'm properly a wife. His smile was sharp and sad. Concerned about me, Natalie? Concerned about my $1 million payout. Liar. He left before she could respond, and she spent the rest of the night trying not to think about the way his skin had felt under her fingers, or the look in his eyes when he'd said she'd be his death. The wedding day dawned gray and raining. Natalie stood in the bridal suite of the Shilla Hotel, surrounded by strangers who treated her like royalty while transforming her into someone she didn't recognize. The hanbok weighed 20 pounds. The headpiece required 3 people to secure properly. By the time they finished, she looked like art more than human. You're beautiful, Maya said through the tablet screen. Aunt Sarah was holding it up in the Chicago hospital room. Like a princess from our dramas. I feel like I'm wearing a museum. Is he handsome? Your mysterious Korean businessman? Natalie thought about Dae-jung's face in her room 2 nights ago, dangerous and vulnerable in equal measure. Yes. Do you love him? The question hit harder than it should have. It's complicated. Nat. Maya's voice went serious. You saved my life. Whatever you're doing, whoever this man is, I just want you to be happy too. I know, baby. Don't worry about me. I love you to the moon and back. I love you to Saturn's rings and beyond. She ended the call before Maya could see her cry. The makeup artist descended immediately, repairing the damage with efficiency. The ceremony was held in the hotel's grand ballroom, transformed into a traditional Korean wedding hall. 500 of Seoul's most powerful people, all here to watch Kwon Dae-jung claim his bride. She entered to gasps and whispers, walking slowly in the traditional way while the hanbok moved around her like water. At the altar, Dae-jung waited in his traditional robes, looking like every historical drama hero she'd ever swooned over with Maya. When their eyes met, something passed between them that made her stumble slightly. He stepped forward immediately, steadying her, with a hand that lingered longer than necessary. Breathe, he murmured in English, low enough that only she could hear. Just look at me and breathe. The ceremony was conducted entirely in Korean, ancient vows that bound them in ways that felt heavier than their contract. When Dae-jung promised to protect her with his life, his voice carried a weight that suggested he meant it beyond their arrangement. When Natalie promised to stand beside him through all darkness, she found herself thinking of him bleeding in her chair, trusting her with his pain. The ring he placed on her finger was different from the engagement ring, older, with rubies that looked like drops of blood. My mother's, he whispered as he slid it on. The only thing of hers I saved. She looked up at him, shocked by the gesture, and found him watching her with an intensity that made her forget 500 people were staring at them. You may kiss the bride, the officiant said in Korean. Dae-jung's hand cupped her face with impossible gentleness. I'm going to kiss you now, he warned softly. Try to look like you want me to. I do want you to, she heard herself say. His eyes darkened. Then his mouth was on hers, and the world exploded into sensation. This wasn't a performance kiss, wasn't careful or controlled. He kissed her like he was drowning, and she was air, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Her hands fisted in his robes, pulling him closer without conscious thought. The crowd erupted in applause, but all she could hear was the thunder of her own heartbeat and his breathing against her lips. When he pulled back, his control was visibly frayed. Well, he said in English, quiet enough for only her. That was unexpected. The reception was a blur of congratulations and veiled threats. Everyone wanted to meet the woman who'd captured the uncapturable Kwon Dae-jung. She smiled until her face hurt, accepted gifts that probably cost millions, and pretended not to notice the security guards that shadowed their every movement. The Yamamoto family sends regards. One guest said, bowing slightly. They hope your union will not affect current agreements. Why would it? Daejung responded, his arm possessive around Natalie's waist. Americans sometimes have different perspectives on traditional business. My wife understands the importance of honoring agreements. Daejung said, his tone carrying warning. Don't mistake her compassion for weakness. The man bowed again and retreated. The Yamamotos run the Tokyo ports, Daejung explained quietly. They're concerned you'll make me soft. Will I? His laugh was dark. You'll make me something. I'm not sure soft is the word for it. As the night wore on, Natalie noticed the pattern. Each conversation was a negotiation, a test, a threat wrapped in silk. These people smiled while calculating how to destroy each other. And now she was part of it, the foreign bride who might be leverage or liability. I need air, she said after the 100th introduction. Daejung guided her to a balcony overlooking the Seoul skyline. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed and gleaming. Surviving? He asked. Barely. How do you stand it? Practice and the knowledge that half these people would kill me if they could. That's terrifying. That's power. Fear and respect are the same currency in my world. Do you fear anyone? He looked at her for a long moment. Recently? Yes. Who? You. Before she could ask what he meant, Ji-won appeared in the doorway. Your father wants the final toast. They returned to find Jae-sung standing despite his obvious frailty. The room went silent. My son has chosen a bride, the old man said, his voice carrying, despite its weakness, an American, a healer. Some would say she doesn't belong in our world. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. But I've watched her these weeks. She stands straight when others would cower. She meets our eyes when others would look away. She has steel beneath the silk. So I give this marriage my blessing, and anyone who moves against my daughter-in-law moves against me. The threat was clear. Natalie was under the protection of the Kwon patriarch. Touch her and die. To the bride and groom, Jae-sung raised his glass. May their union strengthen our family and confound our enemies. 500 glasses raised in response. Natalie drank champagne that tasted like acceptance and danger combined. One more hour, Daejung promised. Then we can leave. That hour felt like a lifetime. More gifts, more veiled threats, more games she didn't understand. Finally, they made their escape to his car. Where are we going? She asked, exhausted beyond measure. The apartment in Gangnam. It's more secure than the house, and I have business that requires proximity to certain locations. Honeymoon suite? She said sarcastically. Something like that. The apartment was penthouse level, of course. Minimalist and modern where the house was traditional. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed souls spread out like an offering. Your room, he said, showing her to a space as large as her entire Chicago apartment. Mine is across the hall. Very romantic. Romance wasn't part of our contract. Neither was your mother's ring. He stilled. That was for appearance. My father knew it was hers. It solidified the image. If you say so. What else would it be? She thought about the kiss at the altar, the way he'd said she'd be his death. I don't know. Get some rest. Tomorrow you meet the real family business. I thought I already had. That was the public face. Tomorrow, you see what pays for all of this. He started to leave, then paused. The kiss. At the ceremony, I apologize if it was too much. It wasn't. Their eyes met across the room, and something electric passed between them. Good night, wife, he said softly. Good night, husband. The word felt strange in her mouth, heavy with implications she didn't want to examine. She dreamed of soul lights and blood on her hands, of Maya laughing, and Daejung's mouth on hers. When she woke, rain was falling again, and the city looked like a painting in watercolor gray. A knock at her door. Breakfast, Daejung called. Then I show you the truth. She dressed carefully, choosing clothes that wouldn't show blood if the day went badly. When she emerged, Daejung was reading something on a tablet, his expression cold. Problems? Always. The Chois are moving against our distribution centers. They think the wedding has me distracted. Are you? Distracted? He looked up at her, and his eyes held heat that made her stomach flip. Constantly. Which is why this needs to end today. What are you going to do? What I always do. Remind them why I'm heir to this empire. After breakfast, they drove to a warehouse district she'd never seen before. The building they entered looked abandoned from outside, but inside it was all business. Men in suits worked at computers, tracking shipments and numbers that meant nothing to her but everything to them. This is the legitimate side, Dae-jung explained. Import, export, logistics. All legal, all taxed, all clean. And the other side? He led her deeper into the building, through security doors that required biometric scanning. The atmosphere changed, became heavier, more dangerous. We move things that can't be moved legally. Not drugs, not people, never children, but weapons, information, items that certain people need to disappear or appear without questions. That's still illegal. Yes, but it's harm reduction. If we don't control these channels, someone worse will. Someone who won't have rules about what they won't touch. A man approached, bowing low. Mr. Kwan, the Chois have taken the bait. Good. Is everyone in position? Yes, sir. Dae-jung turned to Natalie. What happens next might be difficult to watch. You can wait in the office if you prefer. Will people die? Not if everything goes according to plan. But plans have a way of changing. She thought about it, then squared her shoulders. I'll stay. What followed was a masterclass in strategic violence. Dae-jung coordinated his men like a conductor with an orchestra, each movement precise and calculated. When the Chois arrived to raid what they thought was an undefended warehouse, they found themselves surrounded, outmaneuvered, and outgunned. Natalie watched from the security room as Dae-jung walked out to meet the Choi heir personally. They were too far away to hear words, but she could see body language, the moment the Choi heir realized he'd been played. Then Dae-jung did something unexpected. He let them go. No violence, no bloodshed. Just a clear message that he could have destroyed them and chose not to. Why? She asked when he returned. Because dead enemies can't learn lessons. Humiliated ones spread the word about what happens when you move against the Kwan family. Fear is more effective when it's mixed with confusion about why you're still alive. That's either brilliant or insane. Both, probably. That night, she couldn't sleep. The weight of what she'd married into pressed down like the soul sky. She found herself in the kitchen at 2 a.m., making tea with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Regrets? Dae-jung appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted. Reality hitting. He moved into the kitchen, taking the kettle from her trembling hands and finishing the tea preparation himself. You did well today, he said. Most people would have run. I can't run. Maya needs me to stay. Is that the only reason? She looked at him, really looked. He was still in his shirt from earlier, sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms marked with old scars and new bruises. He looked dangerous and exhausted, and somehow vulnerable in his own kitchen at 2 a.m. I don't know anymore, she admitted. He handed her the tea, their fingers brushing. For what it's worth, having you there today, knowing you were watching, made me better, more controlled, less monstrous. You're not a monster. I've done monstrous things. So has everyone. The difference is you're trying to be better. Am I? Or am I just trying to be worthy of the way you look at me when you forget to be afraid? The question hung between them, too heavy for 2 a.m. tea and trembling hands. The way I look at you? He set down his cup, moved closer until she was trapped between him and the counter. Like I might be worth saving. Everyone is worth saving. No. His hand came up to trace her jaw. They're not. But you believe they are, and when you look at me like that, I almost believe it too. Dae-jung. Tell me to stop. His thumb traced her lower lip. Tell me this is just the contract, just an arrangement. Tell me to go back to my room and remember that you hate everything I am. I don't hate you. You should. I know. His control snapped. His mouth crashed into hers, and it was nothing like the wedding kiss. This was desperate, hungry, full of sharp edges and soft surrender. She gasped, and he swallowed the sound, pressing her back against the counter while her hands fisted in his shirt. He kissed her like he was trying to memorize her, like this might be his only chance. His hands tangled in her hair, and she arched against him, every nerve ending alive with want she hadn't expected to feel. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. That can't happen again, he said, though his hands were still in her hair. Okay, I mean it. This is complicated enough without. I know. But neither of them moved. They stood there in his kitchen, foreheads touching, breathing the same air, pretending they could step back from whatever line they'd just crossed. Your sister, he said finally. She's all that matters. We can't forget that. Right, Maya. He stepped back, and the loss of his warmth felt like winter arriving all at once. Good night, Natalie. Good night. This time, when he left, she knew something fundamental had shifted. The contract was still there, the arrangement still binding. But beneath it, something else was growing, dangerous and undeniable. She stood in his kitchen until dawn, watching Sol wake up, thinking about the taste of him on her lips, and the weight of his mother's ring on her finger. 3 months passed in a blur of careful distances and dangerous proximity. Natalie learned to navigate Dae-jung's world, attending meetings where she pretended not to understand while memorizing everything. She watched him rule his empire with calculated violence and unexpected mercy, saw him donate millions to children's hospitals while ordering his men to defend their territory with lethal force. Maya grew stronger every day. The video calls were full of her. Progress, walking, running, planning for college, next year. She believed completely in Natalie's story about advanced training, about the generous businessman who'd fallen in love with her sister. When do I get to meet him? Maya asked during one call. Soon, Natalie lied, knowing it could never happen. Maya couldn't know this world existed, couldn't see what Natalie had become to save her. The careful distance she and Dae-jung maintained began to crack. He still walked her to her door each night, still ensured she was protected whenever she left the apartment. But now there were moments. His hand on her lower back lasting too long at public events, the way his eyes found her in crowded rooms, how he automatically ordered her coffee exactly how she liked it without being asked. People are talking, Ji-won mentioned at another family dinner, about the lack of pregnancy announcement. It's only been 3 months, Natalie responded calmly, though inside she panicked. In our world, 3 months is enough time to secure the line. In my world, 3 months is barely enough time to know someone. Jae-sung laughed from his position at the table's head. He looked worse, the cancer taking its toll despite aggressive treatment. I like her spine, he said again, as he had at their first meeting. But Ji-won has a point. The family needs assurance that the line will continue. The family will have to be patient, Dae-jung said, his voice carrying an edge of warning. That night, he was waiting in her room when she returned from her shower. We need to discuss the heir situation, he said without preamble. Natalie's heart sank. The contract says 2 years. Not 2 years, and a baby. I know. But my father is dying faster than expected. If he passes before believing the line is secure, everything becomes complicated. How complicated? War between factions complicated. Blood in the streets complicated. Everything I've built to minimize harm, destroyed. Complicated. She sat on the bed, suddenly exhausted. So what do you want me to do? I won't have a child just to abandon it when the contract ends. I would never ask that of you. He moved to sit beside her, careful to maintain distance. We fake it. A pregnancy announcement, then a convenient miscarriage. It buys us time and sympathy. That's horrible. This entire situation is horrible. But it's better than the alternative. She looked at him, saw the weight he carried in every line of his face. Okay. Okay? I'll pretend to be pregnant if it prevents a war. His hand found hers, squeezed once, then let go. Thank you. We're going to hell for this. I was already going to hell. At least now I'll have company. Despite everything, she laughed. He smiled, and for a moment they were just 2 people sharing a dark joke in a darker situation. Then his phone rang. His expression changed as he listened, hardening into something lethal. When? He was already standing. How many? I'm on my way. What's wrong? The choice. They have your sister. The world tilted. Natalie couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Maya? But she's in Chicago. They sent men to Chicago. They have her, and they want me to come alone if I want her back. This is my fault. I brought her into this. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. This is my fault. My world, my enemies, my failure to protect what's mine. But I'm going to get her back. I'm coming with you. No, it's a trap. They want to hurt me by hurting you both. I don't care. She's my sister. And you're my wife. The words came out fierce, possessive. I won't lose you both. Then don't go alone. Take your men. If I don't come alone, they'll kill her. She was crying, she realized. Sobbing, shaking, coming apart. He pulled her against him, holding her while she broke. I'm going to get her back, he promised against her hair. I swear on my mother's grave, I'll bring Maya home. They'll kill you, maybe. But not before I save her. She pulled back to look at him. This man she'd married for money, who'd become something she couldn't name. Why? Why risk yourself for her? Because she's yours, he said simply. And you're mine, even if it's only for 2 years. In my world, we protect what's ours with everything we have. He stood to leave, and she grabbed his hand. Dae-jung, be careful. Always am, liar. He kissed her forehead, gentle and final. If something happens, the marriage stands. The money is yours. Take Maya and run far from this world. Nothing's going to happen. Promise me. If I don't come back, you run. Come back, and I won't have to. He left, and Natalie stood in her room, feeling like the world was ending. Her phone rang. Maya's number. Hello, Natalie. The voice was male, Korean, amused. Your sister is lovely, so young, so fragile. Whether she stays that way depends entirely on your husband. If you hurt her, you'll what? You're just a nurse who sold herself for medical bills. But don't worry, Mr. Kwon is on his way. Either he dies and we release your sister, or he submits to our terms and you both become our guests. Either way, this ends tonight. The line went dead. Natalie stood there for 30 seconds, then made a decision. She called the one person she'd never wanted to call. Mr. Kwon, she said when Jae-sung answered. It's Natalie. Your son is walking into a trap, and I need your help. There was a long pause. Then the old man laughed, low and dangerous. Finally, he said, someone in this family with actual spine. Tell me everything. An hour later, Natalie stood in a warehouse that smelled like fear and oil, wearing a bulletproof vest under her coat. Jae-sung's men surrounded the building, waiting for the signal. He'll never forgive you for this, the old man said beside her. I don't care as long as he lives. You love him, it wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes, good, love makes us stupid, but it also makes us strong. He'll need both to survive what's coming. Inside the warehouse, they could hear voices. Dae-jung's, calm and controlled. Others, laughing, taunting. Now, Jae-sung ordered. The world exploded into violence. Natalie followed the team inside, ignoring orders to stay back. She needed to find Maya. The main floor was chaos, gunfire, and shouts. She saw Dae-jung, blood on his face, fighting 3 men at once with a fury that was beautiful and terrible. But no Maya. She went deeper into the building, following instinct. In a back room, she found her. Maya, tied to a chair, unconscious but breathing. Oh God, baby, I'm here. Natalie sobbed, fumbling with the ropes. Well, this is touching. She spun to find one of the Choi sons standing in the doorway, gun pointed at her. The famous wife. You know, we were just going to kill him, but taking you both might be more fun. She's innocent. Let her go. Innocent, he laughed. No one connected to the Kwons is innocent. The gun rose. Natalie moved without thinking, throwing herself in front of Maya. The shot was impossibly loud, but the pain she expected never came. Instead, Dae-jung was there, his hand wrapped around the Choi son's throat, his eyes black with rage. You tried to shoot my wife, he said, voice eerily calm. The crack of the man's neck was sickeningly final. Dae-jung turned to her, and she saw he was hurt, favoring his left side, blood soaking through his shirt. You were supposed to stay at the apartment, he said. You were supposed to not get shot. I didn't get shot. He swayed, stabbed. Slightly different. He collapsed to his knees. Natalie caught him, pressing her hands to the wound. Maya first, he gasped. Get her safe. She's okay. Your father's men are here. My father? He laughed, then groaned. Of course you called him. Brilliant, impossible woman. Sirens approached. The warehouse was secure, Jae Sung's influence ensuring the police would find only what he wanted them to find. "Don't you dare die," Natalie ordered, pressing harder on his wound. "Wasn't planning to." His hand covered hers, sticky with blood. "But if I did, would you mourn me?" "Shut up. Would you miss me when the 2 years ended?" "Dae-jung, please. Because I would miss you. Every day for the rest of whatever life I had left." The paramedics arrived before she could respond, taking over with professional efficiency. As they loaded him onto a stretcher, he caught her hand. "Maya?" he asked. "Safe. Scared but unharmed." "Good." His eyes started to close. "Don't you dare," she said fiercely. "You promised to be careful." "I lied." "I know." She rode with him to the hospital, holding his hand while he drifted in and out of consciousness. At some point, Maya was brought in, still groggy but alert enough to be confused. "Natalie, what's happening? Who is he?" "He's my husband," Natalie said, too tired for lies. "And he just saved your life." Maya looked between them, understanding, dawning. "The businessman. The donation. It was all him?" "It's complicated. He's Yakuza or something, isn't he? And you married him for the money for my surgery. Maya, you sold yourself to save me." Her sister's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Nat. I'd do it again. 1,000 times over." Dae-jung's surgery took 6 hours. Natalie waited with Maya curled against her side and Jae Sung sitting across from them, looking older than she'd ever seen him. "He's strong," the old man said. "Takes after his mother that way. Tell me about her." "She was a nurse, actually, like you. I met her when I was young and stupid. Thought I could have both worlds, the legitimate and the dark. She loved me enough to try. Had my boys. Raised them to be better than me. Then my enemies found her." Dae-jung said it was a car accident. "It was. They ran her off the road. Made it look random, but I knew." He knew too, even at 12. That's when he started training, started preparing to inherit. Not for power, but for the ability to protect what matters. And now? Now he has something worth protecting again. It makes him stronger and more vulnerable simultaneously. When the surgeon finally emerged, announcing success, Natalie nearly collapsed with relief. She was at his bedside when he woke, Maya asleep in the chair behind her. "You look terrible," he said, voice rough. "You look worse." "Impossible. I'm devastatingly handsome even when dying." "You weren't dying." "Felt like it." His eyes moved to Maya. "She's okay? Thanks to you." "Thanks to us. You called my father, didn't you? Brought the cavalry." "Are you angry?" He squeezed her hand. "I'm alive. You're alive. Maya's alive. How could I be angry? Your father knows. About us, about the contract. He knew from the beginning." "He's less stupid than he looks," he said. "You'd need someone strong enough to stand beside you. And are you? Strong enough?" She thought about the last 3 months. The world she'd entered, the violence she'd witnessed, the man she'd married for money who'd bled for her sister. "I don't know. But I want to try." His eyes widened. "The contract. Forget the contract. I'm not talking about arrangements or agreements. I'm asking if you want me to stay. Really stay. Not for 2 years, but for as long as we can make this work." "Natalie." Her name was a prayer on his lips. "You don't know what you're offering." "I'm offering to love a man who runs a criminal empire but donates millions to sick children. Who could have killed his enemies but chose humiliation instead. Who risked his life for a girl he barely knows because she matters to me. That man doesn't deserve you. That man is mine," she said fiercely. "If he'll have me." He pulled her down for a kiss that tasted like blood and promises and forever. "Every day," he said against her lips. "For as long as you'll let me. No contracts, no arrangements. Just us." "Just us," she agreed. From the chair Maya stirred. "If you two are done being dramatic, can someone explain why we're in Seoul, and why Natalie's husband looks like he fought a small army?" "Large army, actually," Dae-jung corrected. "And won." "Oh good," Maya said dryly. "I was worried you might be dangerous or something." Despite everything, they laughed. And in that moment, in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and hope, Natalie realized she'd found something she hadn't been looking for. Not just a husband, not just a protector, but a home in the most unlikely place. The contract would be dissolved, The marriage would be real. The danger would remain, but so would they, together, building something beautiful in the spaces between violence and redemption. 6 months later, at another family dinner, Ji-won asked again about heirs. Actually, Natalie said, meeting Dae-jung's eyes across the table. We have an announcement. His eyebrows rose. They hadn't discussed this. I'm pregnant, she said simply. 3 months. The table erupted. Jae-sung, now confined to a wheelchair but still sharp as ever, smiled with genuine warmth. Ji-won looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Dae-ho offered congratulations that barely masked his frustration. Later, in their shared bedroom, because they'd long since stopped pretending to need separate spaces, Dae-jung pulled her against him. Is it true? He asked against her hair. Would I lie about something like this? You've lied about plenty since you met me, only when necessary. She turned in his arms to face him. This isn't necessary. This is wanted. His hands spread across her still flat stomach, reverent and protective. A baby? He said wonderingly. Our baby. Our baby, she confirmed. Think you can keep us both safe? I'd burn the world down to keep you safe. Let's try to avoid that. I'd like our child to have a world to inherit. Then I'll remake it. Cleaner, safer, better. The way my mother wanted me to. We'll remake it, Natalie corrected. Together. He kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promises she knew he'd keep. Outside, Seoul glittered in the darkness, dangerous and beautiful, like the man she'd married for money and chosen for love. Their child would be born into complications, into a world of shadows and light, but also into a family that would protect them with everything they had. I love you, Dae-jung said, the words still new enough to feel precious. I love you too, she replied. To the moon and back. Further, he said. To Saturn's rings, and beyond. She smiled, thinking of Maya, safe and thriving in her sophomore year at Seoul National University. Of Jae-sung, holding on to see his grandchild born. Of the empire slowly transforming under Dae-jung's control, still dangerous but no longer monstrous. Forever, then, she said. Forever, he agreed. And in the city that never slept, in a penthouse that had become a home, they held each other and planned for a future that neither had imagined when she'd taken his arm at that charity auction, desperate and broken and willing to pay any price for her sister's life. The price, it turned out, had been her heart, and she'd never made a better deal.